Okay, now that we have done a full kind of photo study black and white painting, we're going to take all of that information that we learned from that and we're going to apply it into another painting, but this time just out of imagination. So this is kind of like the step up from what we last did, and it's going to take more design skill and it's going to take more creativity, really, to get a drawing or a painting like this to a level that you probably are going to want it to be. And that, that's normal. It just comes with practice, just like everything else that we've talked about this whole time. So, last time in the last painting, we did a woman, and this time I felt like I should do a guy. So, this is a character that I've had kind of kicking around in my head for a while. I have a couple, like comic ideas or something like that. And so this is a character from one of those. And so, as you'll see, he's kind of like a smarmy, kind of arrogant dude. And we'll see how that shapes up throughout the sketch. But I'm following the same process as I've done throughout all of the other head drawings that I've done. I started with a circle. I kind of added the rest of the face, like the jaw and chin area, on top of that circle, and made the kind of center line and the cross line that goes across for the eyes. And I'm just kind of building off of that framework. And a lot goes into this kind of thing, especially when it comes to style and how exactly you want to portray the character, I guess. And there's gonna be a lot of personal preference with that. So don't worry about that too much. Just kind of draw and make it the way that you want it to look. I know that's easier said than done, but it'll come. Just as long as you keep practicing, like I've said before, as long as you keep practicing those head drawings, you will come to a point where you'll just have kind of an artistic voice that just kind of happens. And it takes time for that to get to that point where you're just kind of naturally creating things in a certain way. But don't worry about all of that stuff and when it's going to happen and how you can make it happen and all. It's kind of pointless worrying. Just kind of draw. Just go for it. Just do it. And eventually things will happen and you'll kind of create this style on your own. You'll kind of just naturally form it. So I'm just kind of putting in all of the landmarks, moving things around so that they look correct. Like I moved that cheekbone a little bit. As you can see, I've tilted this guy's head down slightly, and that is going to affect the perspective of the drawing of all of the different facial features. Like we've talked about in the videos for all of the individual facial features, you need to be able to learn how to draw each of those features from different angles and kind of just get a sense for how things look. So that's why those exercises that I talked about, potentially drawing 50 of each of those facial features and even multiples of entire heads, that's why it's so important, because you're creating this kind of, to borrow the words of Jake Parker, you're creating this kind of artistic mental bank account just so you can know and have answers beforehand that are just kind of logged in your brain that will help you make decisions on the fly. So I'm just going in, making sure I have everything in the correct place, adding the little details. This guy is kind of a proper kind of dude. And like I wanted him to have kind of this feel of an like an aristocratic kind of princely, kind of prim and proper kind of guy. So I want his hair to be well coiffed. I want him to look, for lack of a better term, pretty. I want him to look very well put together and like he's aware of it. And so, as we go farther along in the process, you'll be able to see that in the painting as well. And you can see when I'm drawing those pupils, I'm not indicating all of the pupil. I'm just kind of like putting a placeholder because I know that the upper side or upper half of that pupil is kind of going to start to blend in a little bit with the upper part of the iris, which, based on the lighting I'm going to give this, will be darker, right? Like the lighting is going to be coming from above, so that upper end of the iris is going to be in shadow. So I'm just kind of indicating the location of those pupils, and I'm not needing to go and put every single detail. Like I said before, know when to edit, know what details to put in, and what to leave out. And that just comes with practice as well. I feel like I'm kind of a broken record because I'm just talking about practice, but that's really the case. Almost all of this stuff becomes easier to understand and just becomes natural, more natural at least, with practice. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Do it. Practice as much as you can. Kind of shoring up the details, making the jaw and chin area read correctly, and fixing up that ear a little bit. And like we did with the first sketch, you'll notice that I started very loose and I just slowly added more stuff, right? I didn't create a separate layer for the refined sketch in this one because I don't know, sometimes it's just more natural for me to just keep building on something, erase things out, and just keep kind of like pushing and pulling things around until I get to a result that I like. So I guess just look at this and practice both things, see what feels more natural to you, and go from there. So just adding in that bottom lip. You don't want to make, in my experience, you don't want to make male characters have really, I guess, prominent lips. It tends to, I guess, detract a little bit from masculinity, maybe? I don't know. It just tends to look a little bit weirder than if you're, like, making a woman's lips really pronounced, because I mean women tend to wear like makeup and like lipstick and all that kind of stuff, and so they're drawing attention to their lips, right? And men tend to like downplay them, and so if you go in and paint purposefully eye-catching lips on a male character, it in a lot of cases will look kind of strange. I mean, in the right context, it definitely is appropriate, right? I'm not saying this is a catch-all, but in a lot of cases, it'll be a little bit odd. And so what I just did there was I flipped the canvas horizontally just to make sure that everything was looking okay. Sometimes you get so used to the drawing that you're making and it just looks good to you, right? And you're like, this is great. And then once you hit a certain point, you realize, oh no, this drawing is bad. Where did I go wrong? And a way that you can avoid that is by flipping your canvas, or if you're drawing traditionally, using a mirror and looking at your drawing through that mirror and seeing it as it's horizontally flipped. And if it looks weird, then that's a sign that it probably looks weird normally too. So that's just a little tip that you can use to I guess check yourself a little bit more, so that the end result of your drawing is better than it would be. So we're nearing the end of this sketch now, and it's the drawing itself is nothing crazy. We're just kind of finding the last little details. I noticed that there was a little bit of weird stuff going on with the eye, that right eye, or his right eye, the eye on the left side of the screen, I guess. And I noticed that it was a little bit higher up than his other eye, and so I just decided to grab it and drag it down just a little bit. Just trying to clean things up before I go into the painting so I can have the best results that I possibly can from the start. And the last thing that you can see me doing here is I'm grabbing that ear and that jaw area, and I'm just kind of dragging it over to the side more so I can give a little bit more space to that cheek area and make his face seem a little bit more full. I have a tendency to make the faces on my characters, I guess, a little bit thin looking, so I wanted to counteract that. So everyone has their own tendencies, I guess, when it comes to drawing and painting, and you just gotta kind of learn to deal with it and roll with the punches and fix things that you think look wrong. So that is it for the sketch portion, and in the next video we're going to be starting this painting with some grayscale. We're not going to end the painting in grayscale, we're going to go to color, but the next video will be kind of the first step of that painting process. So I'll see you in that next video.